Hello there. Welcome to Not Just Another Webinar East Edition series. My name is Jerry Prince, and today we're looking at audio in Adobe Audition at East. Today's Lunch and Learn is about cleaning up audio clips of speech and also enhancing the sound, and maybe we get to work with some music, incorporating that into our projects as well. If you're unfamiliar with East but have chosen to tune in, well, certainly welcome aboard. Here's a little bit about what East is and what we typically do. We are an educational nonprofit with headquarters here in Little Rock, Arkansas. We put industry-grade technology into schools and challenge students and other lifelong learners to look out in their community, find some problems, and use these tools and the relationships in the community to solve those problems. We have around 260 programs spanning across Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and even over the way in Pennsylvania. And we try to give all learners the opportunity to have relevant, individualized, and life-changing educational experiences. So in this webinar, again, my name is Jerry Prince, and I am the Senior Director of Program Services at East, and I also get to do other stuff. One of the things that we get to do is we get to tinker with some of the technology, and that's one of the things that I am very excited about today. So very quickly, let me change the share so we can get over here and jump into what it is that we're going to be working with. I do have some sample files, and we will make those available at the end. You can download these. I'm going to record this session. You can download these samples, and you can go back and kind of follow along. But we want to kind of quickly run through as a lunch and learn rather than guided practice. We want to run through and show what some of the tools can be done. You can download these clips later on, come back, watch the video, pause, and play along at your own speed. So there are a number of clips, and again, we'll make those available for you at the end. I also will make available a document that kind of shows the workflow of which we're going to be doing. Adobe Audition itself is very similar to some of the other tools. There are a lot of tools here. It can be rather overwhelming, but it's not bad at all once you get in and you play around with it just a little bit. First of all, by looking at the overall screen and the layout, I would encourage you to go to Window and choose Workspace and Default. There are a lot of options there, but that should put you looking at something very similar to what is on my screen. On the top left-hand corner, we have our files. I simply drag and dropped these files from where I downloaded them, and you can do the very same thing. So these will be the files that we are working with. Down below, there's a media browser, allows you to actually browse and find some things. Effect Rack. We are not going to be using Effect Rack today, but as you start using some of these tools over and over again, this allows you to put them in a place that you can easily turn them on, turn them off, and make applications. Markers, also something else we're not going to take time to talk about today, but it basically allows you to kind of bookmark places along the way, and we'll talk about history as we go along as well. Over on the right-hand side, the big black window with the little green slashes throughout it. This is going to be our primary workspace. And below that, we see some tools for playing and fast forwarding. To the right, some tools for changing our view, zooming in and zooming out. Right below that, we see a volume level. And another little box on the right-hand side will come to play a little bit later on. Scale at the very top. That shows our entire file that we're working with, as well as a timeline. There's a lot inside Adobe Audition. A lot of great resources out there. Strongly encourage you, don't get intimidated by this tool. So let's jump in and play around just a little bit. The process that we're going to be working with, everyone does things kind of their own way. The way that I operate, the way I work with when I do get to work with audio files is, number one, I want to be sure they're clean. And then number two, I'm going to work on the dynamics, the overall sound. So clean it up and then work with the overall sound. I'm working with a file called Edit. Number one, Edit. These are simply clips that I borrowed from some interviews and things that we have done. We are not concerning ourselves with the actual content of what's being said. We're talking about the overall sound. So don't get so caught up in, I wonder what they're talking about. That's not really why we are here today. One of the first things that I noticed when I start, a couple more tools here that I want to talk about. There is a button right over here that can kind of freak you out a little bit when you click it. It is the spectral frequency display. That's what it does. We can visualize the sound up here in our waveform, if you will, but this spectrum analyzer allows us to see things just a little bit more. And this will really come to play as we start working on this just a little bit more. Again, everyone has their own way of doing things. One of the tools that I work with frequently, and they actually give it to us here very handy, this allows us to change the volume. And if I leave my mouse over it, it says adjust the amplitude. That's volume. And as I rotate the dial, you can see my waveform growing, expanding just a little bit. Now we've got to be careful here because we are increasing the sound of everything, including noise that's in the background. So some people will say, yeah, you don't want to do that to the very end. Well, okay, don't do it till the end. But me, I like to see what it is that I am working with. So the first thing we're going to be working with is cleaning. So we can see in our form at the very top, the waveform editor, we can see there are sounds, and then there's a line to where there appears to be silence, and then more sounds. When we go down to the spectral, the orange, the yellow-orange is going to be the really loud, and then it kind of tapers off. Well, when we get over here into this area to where there is no sound, if you notice down here, yes, there is. There actually is sound. Let's take a listen to the no sound. And I can actually see below on my level meter, there is sound. Now, what have I got going on here? I simply selected by left click and dragging my mouse, and I've got a little tool down here that will loop that over and over again. So there is very much sound that is going on in the background. It's not a lot. And you're thinking, it's really not that much that I should be concerned about it. Maybe not. But always take a look. We want the audio as clean as possible when we are working with it. And there are a number of tools that allow us to go in and tweak things just a little bit. So let's go in. We're going to go the long way. There are shortcuts. We're going to go into effects, and we're talking about noise reduction. We're going to start at the very top. You'll notice there are a number here. And we're going to start at the very top. This says capture noise print. So we're going to select an area that's just background noise. It's just the noise that I want the software to analyze and remember. You remember and you analyze what the sound is in the background. Capture the noise print. And that's pretty much what that little dialog box says. It captured the noise print, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to pull up the second tool, the noise reduction process. And here's my tool. There's the capture noise print in case we didn't already do it. So the noise is going to be the red, and it's noted right there. And the green is going to kind of be my threshold. I've got some tools down here, but without tweaking anything, I want to just listen to what actually is taking place. And again, I'm going to watch my level meter at the bottom. I'm going to click the preview play button. So it's doing a little bit. I can turn off the filter and actually see and hear how much it's doing. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I also can just listen to output noise only. This will play back just what it is filtering out. Okay, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting. It actually was so quiet I had to double check to be sure that I had my speakers on. I couldn't hear anything. So we have some settings here, and we can reduce the noise reduction. And again, with all of these tools, learn a little bit more about them. Look at some of the resources online, and there's some really powerful tools. Again, we are simply introducing what these tools can do. I'm going to move on and look at another tool while we are here, and that is the denoise. Again, a number of tools. And I can do very much the same thing, not quite as many settings here. There is an amount of how much it's going to reduce. I'm going to go back and select the area that I am working with, play it back. I see a little bit of what's going on here. There's my output noise only if I want to listen to it. And so I can go back and forth and tinker and find a tool that is going to work best for me and remove that noise. When I click apply, it is only going to apply where I have selected. So right now it's just going to remove, and let's see if this actually is going to do anything. See the purple in the background? Let's see how much it actually does. So, okay, we saw, oops, I maybe should not have done that. Let me stop whatever it is that's doing. I don't know what auto healing is, but I don't know that I want it healed right now. So I'm going to click over here, and so it lowered. We see a black area down here now that it actually filtered out some of that noise. So that spectrum analyzer there gives us a little bit of an idea of what is going on. Play around with some of the noise reduction tools, and again, it's just be aware that they are there is one of the primary things that we are doing. And there are other tools that are also there. There's a de-hummer. If you've got a buzz in the background that's sometimes created by lights or electrical, they are in a very specific frequency, and that de-hummer will remove that as well. Let's take a look at another sample that has an obvious problem, and I'm going to crank the volume up just a little bit here because that's just who I am and how I operate. And let's give this a listen.
Ready. Okay.
I hear an air conditioner. I hear a fan or something that is in the background. We can zoom in by scrolling the wheel. I'm going to go to the very beginning of my clip here, and we can zoom in by using the scroll wheel. There are also zoom tools here. One zoom will go this way, the other zoom will go this way, depending on what it is that you want to zoom in. I want to zoom in on what it is that I am working with. I'm going to select just a clip of the sound, and there's some stuff going on. Let's listen. So there's a breath right at the beginning. If I want to be real for certain that I just want the air conditioner, what's at the tail end of that? There's a breath at the end of that as well. If I really want just that signature, I'm going to choose this. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to use that denoise this time, and let's see how good of a job that it actually does. I'm going to listen to just the noise that it's filtering out only. Not bad. I don't know how good of a job that's going to do for us. I may want to crank that up just a little bit more, and let's listen one more time. Let's turn it off and listen. I can't tell that it's doing anything. Okay, so that's a strike one. So let's go back, and I'm going to close that, and I'm going to go back to my effects. I really thought that was going to do something for us. I'm going to capture a noise print and go back to my noise reduction process one more time, and let's try this one. I want to see what it's going to remove. It's going to remove that. Whoa. Turn it off. Again, I'm watching my meter down here as well. Turn it off. Okay, turn it on. That's significant. So I'm going to select my entire file just by double clicking, and I'm going to apply that across my entire file. So how big of an impact did this have? I can zoom back out so I can see more of my file. How big of an impact?
Today I was able.
Now we can
Today I was able to.
There's still a little bit of noise down here. We go back and we select. Watch my meter at the bottom. Still a little bit of noise, but a considerable difference. That background noise would have a significant impact. A number of people, whether you're an audio engineer or not, would recognize that roar in the background. Just a little bit of work it took for us to pull that background noise out And we had to kind of move around a little bit and use a couple of different tools. There are some other tools that are there, but I'm going to work until I find a tool that's going to do what I needed to do, and it may take several. When we're removing sound, we always need to listen to be sure that we're not removing part of the speech, because we are actually removing frequencies, and we need to be careful that we're not removing part of the speech as part of that process. The third example that we want to look at, let's see if you can figure out what might be the bigger issue that we need.
We didn't have the funding to hire a designer and an architect to.
Okay, pretty good volume, not bad at all, but I hear an echo. They are in a room that has a lot of solid walls, solid floors, and there's a lot of echo. Not bad, however, with just a little bit of work, we can remove that. I'm going to go back to my effects, and under noise reduction and restoration, this is where I found some of my models earlier that I removed. There is a de-reverb. We don't have to tweak much at all here typically. So let's listen to it with it on.
We didn't have the funding to hire a designer and an architect to do these things for us and kind of put on paper.
With that, I'm going to apply it, and we can come back and we can look at some of the noise in the middle. There's my auto healing. I need to find a way to turn that off because I really don't know. I don't know that I need anything healing. Oh, I see a Band-Aid at the top. I bet that's it. I'm going to go back and click off of that and use my time selection tool. Someone accidentally clicked on that earlier. Interesting. So there you go. So removing the echo, and again, we may want to go do some other things with noise, but we were focusing on the echo. Let's take a look at this one. This one looks a little bit different than the first one we looked at. Notice the green, and notice also our spectrum analyzer. This was the first one we looked at. And this one is clipped. What do we mean by that? What we mean is there's sound that we can see that it kind of continues on going up and also continues going down. And when audio is clipped, it's just like getting a haircut. When your hair has been clipped, it's gone. Can't use it anymore for the most part. This basically is an audio clip that was recorded at a too high of a level. The record level was too high. Most recorders have a light that lights up and it says clip, and that's a warning sign that you're too loud. When audio is clipped, we have lost that audio. Let's give a listen to this. It's painful.
Our students, using the latest technology.
Notice at the very bottom also our level meter goes all the way to red and it pegs out.
Have created sophisticated projects. Our students.
The audio is too loud, and we can do the opposite of what we did earlier. We can crank it down, but notice it's lowering the volume.
Using the latest technology.
I'm no longer in red, but it still sounds distorted. There's that crackle. And there's not a whole lot we can do with this type of audio, but if this is all we've got to work with, we can clean it up. Yes, there's a little bit of noise in the background, but we can actually clean it up a little bit with a process called, what am I looking for here? De-clipper. I just saw it a moment ago, and now I've got to go find it again. It's under diagnostics. So sometimes you have to search for where it is. It's under diagnostics. I would have put it somewhere else, but they didn't ask me. De-clipper. It is clipped. And so this will analyze. Notice it popped a box up over here on the left-hand side instead of a dialog box in the middle, and it's called diagnostics. I'm going to scan my entire file, and notice that it says 44 problems detected. So it's looking and it's seeing areas that were clipped. For instance, that area right there doesn't look clipped, nor does that one. but the rest of them, or many of them, 44 do. We've got some settings here, and we can tweak those a little bit, and it's telling us where those 44 areas are, and I actually can select one and just repair it, or I can repair all. Again, we need to be very careful, but I'm going to go repair all, and notice what it did. Let's listen and see what happened to our audio clip.
Our students, using the latest technology, have created sophisticated projects.
Not bad. I'm actually really impressed with that. Now, that sound is now a little muddy. It's a little dark. It's lost some of the dynamics. We're going to get into working on those dynamics next, but that's not bad at all. The more it's clipped, the harder it's going to be. But just because you've got something that's clipped a little, don't mean you've got to go back and start over. So that's one of the powerful parts of Audition, is taking something that looks like it's not usable. It may take a little bit of work, but often you can take something that's not real usable and make it usable. One of the key things is always record good audio. Be sure your levels are good. Be sure your microphones are close to the individuals. That's usually where that echo comes from. There's no fan going on in the background, no air conditioner. There's not a train going by. There's not a jet going over. And if you need to stop an interview and go back over it, do so. Always get good audio. If you've got poor audio, you're limited in what you can do. But in case you're given some poor audio, there's still quite a bit that can be done. But if you've got good audio, that's a much better place to start than, say, for instance, what we have here. That looks like a flat line. Well, that is a flat line. If I do what I typically do and I crank it up just a little bit, if I go maximum 15, I see some signs of life there. But again, when I turn the volume up, I'm turning up the volume on everything, including that noise that's going on in the background. And that is busy, busy, busy. We see as much color on that spectral as we have before. So let's get into some of the process. Again, I'm going to have to really look and see some of what's going on here. I'm going to have to run some denoise, and I'm guessing that this area right here is probably only noise. Let's listen. Okay, there's some speech in there. Let me get my I didn't really need to do that, but let's get that out of the way. And I think this is just noise. The more noise that I can select, the better job it's going to do in analyzing. So as a rule of thumb, if you're in a room that's got some ambient noise, and all rooms do, record something in the very beginning. Record, give it 10 seconds, and allow it to record nothing but room sound. And then you can always go back to the very beginning, and you've got something in the beginning that you know is going to be a very good place to capture your noise print. Where was I? I was thinking it was right about here. Yeah. And so I'm going to capture my noise print here. Wrong area, Jerry. Capture noise print. There's my little dialog box. I'm going to go back, and you will notice there actually are hotkeys, Control-Shift-P, but I can't remember all of those. Output noise only, so I see what it has done. I don't know if that's going to do exactly what I needed, but I'm going to go ahead and select the entire thing and do apply. And notice it had a pretty strong, clean things up a little bit. I think that may have only just done that one part. I can tell by looking that it only cleaned out that one part. Look at this. So I thought I selected the entire file. I didn't, but we can see where it cleaned there. But also notice that where it cleaned, it also cleaned some of these other things as well. So when we are removing sound, and that could impact the dialogue just as well. So let's get into some of the dynamics. When we're looking at some of the dynamics, this is going to frame and talk about the sound of the speech, not the sound in the background that we've been talking about, but the sound that is actually, we want to shape the sound of what is going on with the actual dialogue. So we're talking more dynamics now than anything else. And we're going to work under filter and EQ. EQ is called equalizer, and you often will see sliders, and this allows us to increase or decrease the levels in that frequency from low all the way to high. We can increase or decrease those frequencies. Many of the equalizers that we have presets. I'm going to go to the parametric equalizer. It's one of my favorites, and one of the presets is vocal enhancer. And so it kind of gives us a wave here, starting from low, going to the high pitch sound, low pitch. We see that it is cutting the low pitch and then raising as it gets into the mid-low pitch, and then dropping a little bit and then going up on the very end. Let's play back and watch the spectrum on our tool here, and we can see a little bit of what's going on. Now I'm playing only the noise. Let's get it to where we actually had some audio going on. Where did I say? Filter, EQ, and parametric. Let's try that one more time.
Not all of our projects are these projects,
it's not going to be,
but they do lead students into learning some skills that they will need
so it gives
for
a little bit more on the high end, and it pulls out a little bit of the low. It's not as drastic as we might want, and we actually can tweak that a little bit here. Another one of those things that you can look up and you can learn quite a bit about. And there's some funky stuff that you can do here as well. And go tinker, go see what all of these do, see what all the check boxes do and don't do. I'm going to go ahead and select my entire file here, and I'm going to apply that. Another example or another tool that I want to work with, I've already worked with the parametric equalizer, and I think I want to go into one of the others. I don't think it's under, it's going to be under amplitude. Amplitude is talking about volume, and that's a little bit of what we want to work with. And I'm glancing at notes here, and I want to work with the normalize is a pretty good one. Let's go ahead since we're here. That is a way of increasing the volume, but it's actually analyzing and not just cranking the volume up, but it is raising some of the volume in some areas and lowering in other areas. That's actually called compression, but it's doing more than just cranking the volume up, and it's actually a pretty good tool. I got it set at 98.8, 98.8, 98.5, according to people that use this professionally. They say that's good to go. Watch what happens when I click apply. It actually lowered some of the levels and then raised some of the other. I'm going back to amplitude, and this time I am going to go to, I believe it is multi-band compressor. So I have some presets here. So this is giving me a little bit of an equalizer, and compress lowers the high one, the high volume, and raises the lower volume, almost like normalize, but it gives us a little bit broader range of what it is capable of doing. A lot of effects here, and I'm going to use raise vocals. So it's starting on the low end on the left-hand side, going to the high end. I can see that it's raising the low, dropping down the mids a little bit, and raising the high. And let's see what it does to our
students. Our library edition. With this project, we are what these kids are. They are remodeling our library, giving it not only more room, but they're also knocking down some walls to expand our library.
So again, multiple tools there. We don't necessarily need all of them. We may only need one. One's going to work in some instances, and other tools may work in others. Let me be sure there's not anything else that I want to play with here. What's under dynamics? Dynamics is going to have some tools. I would encourage you to look up what noise gate is. We're not going to go into that. Just look up what it is. That could be a tool to help you eliminate some of that very low background noise as well. I think we may glance, let's also look at, I don't think we have looked at single band compressor. There are some voice things there. Vocal booster might do some things, voice over, voice thickener, depending on the quality of the sound that you are after. Play around with those. Let's see what vocal booster does. And again, you got some things that you can tweak there. Let's give it a listen.
New resources for other classrooms. Like,
wow, significant dental difference. But I also noticed background noise. Notice what happened to our volume. Well, actually, there's some talking in the background. I completely filtered that out earlier. So a lot of tools that are there for you to use. One more in editing sound. Let's take a look here. I'm looking overall at what's going on in the sound, and I see some kind of interesting things going on. It looks like there might be some
how do I explain who I am? How do I
peaks. I mean, sometimes there's a clap, sometimes there's a sneeze, sometimes there's a cough. There's something here. Let's listen.
Absolutely a game changer.
There's a thump. There is a thump there. I want to be thump free. Yep. I'm going to zoom in. Now I'm going to analyze this very carefully to be sure I'm not getting a part of a word or a part of speech, and my volume thing is right in the way. Let me see if I've got the thump. Oh, perfect. That's a beautiful thump. Notice what it looks like on the spectrum analyzer as well. Now I can lower the volume of this and completely reduce it so it has no sound whatsoever. However, this will be noticeable. Let me play that back and show you. Listen for that when we get to that part. Oops, let me go back over here and get away from the clip. Come on, work with me.
But it's absolutely.
You notice that? It's almost a thump again.
But it's absolutely.
Because there's nothing there. We have sound to the left, sound to the right, and I have removed all sound. And so completely lowering the volume is actually going to cause an issue. So I can point out our history over here, and now we can go back in time. I can Control Z, but I can also click over here in history and bring that back. So I can Control Z, or I can actually, you can see my history goes all the way back to show everything that I have done. Actually, what I want to do here is there's nothing there that I want to keep. I'm going to hit delete, and it's going to remove it. Are you sure you want to delete? Okay, so I'm deleting the action over there in the history. So let me get away from that. Select just my thumb and delete it. And yes, it's gone. It's gone.
But it's absolutely a game changer.
Now, wait a minute. I may have affected some speech there.
But it's absolutely a game.
Oh, I may have to go back and look at that. I may have been a little sloppy on that edit. But you get the idea of how we can listen to some things. Yes, there's probably some noise. Yes, there's probably a little bit that we're able to do with the dynamics of the sound as well. But sometimes there's just some noise in the background. I'm also going to point out, I saw a very good video that we'll link to some videos on YouTube that they were using the spectrum analyzer, and they actually were able to use that healer and go down and actually paint out and remove some noise from the background by painting it in that spectrum analyzer. That was impressive. And yeah, we're not going to necessarily do that. I think we have time to jump into one more area. And one of the files that I did not bring in earlier that we need to bring in is actually a sound file. This is a file that we received from Tri-County Technical School, Tri-County Tech in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, many months ago, now possibly years. It's called Beast Pulse, and it's simply one of those loops that some students have created that I have always kept handy. So what we're talking about now, mixing two different tracks. We've been working in a single track more recently, and now we want to work in multi-track. So up here at the very top left-hand side, we've been working in the waveform editor. I want to work in the multi-track view. It asked me to name my multi-track. I'm going to name it, and it's going to now give me multiple tracks, track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, and I can pull in the tracks that I want to work with. I'm going to work with that clipped one that we had earlier, and I'm going to bring in my music. So I simply drag and drop. The dialog box that pops up says, hey, Audition doesn't like an MP3. I'm going to convert this to something that I'm happy with. Yeah, go ahead. We can see in the waveform of the video or the audio, the music file, it starts off very slow and then builds up. I really want to start where it starts kind of loud in a file that we are using music. You cannot have the music too loud. You cannot let the music play too loud. This is what it sounds like when you do that. That's not good. That is not good at all. And honestly, we have received audio clips and we have received videos with a mix of music in this fashion. That is not usable. Never, ever have the music too loud that it distracts from the audio. Don't have music at all if it's going to cause that most of a problem. So never have music so loud that it is distracting from the dialogue. In Audition, there are some phenomenal tools that we have at our disposal that makes this so easy. We're simply going to select, and notice when I open multi-track, it opened up something called a sensual sound over here on the right. If that window did not open up, you can go find it. It's relatively easy to find, but go find it so it does open. So it does go open up. I have to move my camera here a little bit. I'm going to select my dialogue, and I am going to assign a tag to that. It is dialogue. I'm going to select my music, and when I assign it the music tag, I'm going to get some options. Also, let's go back to my dialogue. I have some options here, and so I can make some minimal tweaks similar to the settings that we had just a moment ago. I can make some minimal tweaks right here. Kind of interesting. When I select my music, it also gives me some pretty interesting tweaks as well. Before we look at that, I want to note that yellow line that goes across. That is the volume. I can increase and decrease the volume, and I actually can fade the volume in and fade the volume out of my song manually. That's kind of the hard way. There's a tool that we can use since we've identified dialogue and music called ducking. Watch what happens to my volume line when I click ducking. It automatically fades it at the start of my dialogue and then fades it back up at the end of my dialogue. Oh, I like that. Let's watch what happens with us doing nothing but clicking that one button.
Our students, using the latest technology, have created sophisticated...
Not bad. So obviously that clip is a little bit on the muddy side. We need to clean up that clip so it's a little bit more dynamic. My music still might be a little bit too loud, but it could be that my dialogue clip is not loud enough. I can tweak some settings over here, the sensitivity, because again, it is the software that is identifying dialogue. It may have caught some low spots of that dialogue and threw that music back up too loud. How much is it lowering? So again, there's that duck tool is really powerful. So that's a quick introduction to the multi-track editor and also working with music inside Audition with working with that music file along with that dialogue file. So we're going to kind of jump toward the we're going to jump to the closing thoughts of us getting together today. Again, my name is Jerry Prince, and we certainly appreciate you joining us. As mentioned in the very beginning, here's a link to all of the files that we have worked with today, and also there are a couple of files there. I think I put 2 there. We only actually need 1 of the notes and the workflow, and so it kind of goes into how I found some of the tools that we actually used. But all of the sound clips that we worked with today are there. And also that music bed is there. bit.ly East Audio. It is case sensitive. bit.ly/East Audio. There's no exclamation point at the end of that address. We'll get you to a point that you can download those files. We do want to remind you of the survey. Be sure and go to the survey and give us some feedback on the experience that you had with us today. And that is eastlink.me/webinar survey, eastlink.me webinar survey, and that will be in the chat as well. Our next Lunch and Learn, Miss Jessica is going to be coming your way on July the 2nd, and she's going to be doing Zoom tips and tricks. Again, that is July 2nd for Not Just Another Webinar East Edition on Zoom tips and tricks. And also note that we are recording all of these so you can go back and you can watch them just a little bit later. We certainly appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to take the survey, sign up or join us on Facebook Live, fb.me/East Initiative. And again, you can watch it later on YouTube. Links in the chat. If you've got any questions or anything that we might be able to help you with, you can connect with us on eastlink.me/join East to learn more about it. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to stick around in chat for a little bit if you've got specific questions that we might be able to help you with. Thank you very much for joining us in our time working with Adobe Audition.